Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. So nice to see so many of you tonight here at University of Creativity. Hopefully you hear me okay. 大丈夫ですか? Onyo. Okay, super. Well, tonight we have the pleasure of discussing health and design from the point of view of product design, architecture, but also urbanism with this title, Cities of Longevity. We have special guests coming from Switzerland, from the Swiss Center for Design and Health. We have Japanese, 日本語通訳もついてますので、みんな大丈夫ですか？そのレシーバーの機材とかいいですか？ Super, that's great. Then I would like just to thank on my behalf the University of Creativity for welcoming us once again. My name is Jonas Pulfer. I am the head of communications and culture at the embassy. I think I was much younger on this picture, but you know, tonight we discuss aging very openly, so I think that was a good start. And to give a few introductory remarks, it's my pleasure to welcome a colleague of mine, the head of the Science and Technology Office Tokyo, Mrs. Kyoko Suzuki. Kyoko, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the kind introduction. And dear ladies and gentlemen, on site and online, thank you very much for this opportunity and for joining us. As mentioned, I'm from the Science and Technology Office at the Embassy of Switzerland in Japan. And our mission, we are part of the Swiss Global Network called SwissNex, which supports the exchange of knowledge and talents and outreach in the fields of education, research, and innovation. I'm very pleased to be here with you today, and please allow me to share 3 reasons why. Is the mic okay?
いや、ちょっとね、このスピーカーの状況はちょっと
We need it for the online, I guess. Okay, so I keep. So 3 reasons why I'm very excited to be here today with you. Number 1, did you know that recent studies indicate humans could live up to the age of 150 if it's a stress-free environment and everything else really goes well? Another study predicts that there is a 68% chance someone will reach age 127 within the next 75 years or so. This means that my colleague, who's 25 at the moment, will only be 100. And the longest-lived person who passed away in 1997 was 122 years old. So actually, the figures aren't that surprising. This made me realize that longevity is a topic not only for citizens, senior citizens today, but it's really not too far away for everyone. And rather, it's going to impact the senior citizens of tomorrow because its life expectancy is still growing in many places. Reason number 2, our education system is changing. Many of us probably had to focus our studies on one discipline. Recently, we're seeing slightly more interdisciplinary degrees and educational programs. This is because the value of interdisciplinary research and discussions are being recognized. Interdisciplinary research projects and discussions spark new inspirations that may challenge mainstream perceptions and lead to insights that might otherwise be overlooked. So I'm grateful to our speakers, our partners, the University of Creativity, and the Swiss Center for Design and Health for enabling such an exciting event. Not to forget my third reason, this morning I had the privilege of having a brief presentation from the Swiss Center for Design and Health. And I can assure you, today will be an interesting event. We are proud to have this interdisciplinary research center from Switzerland in Tokyo. I'd like to close by wishing all of our wonderful speakers active in interdisciplinary fields a fruitful discussion, and by thanking my colleagues, Jonas Pulver, Amai Do, and Sarah Bockmann, who really contributed in making this event happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna try to. Okay, I hope you hear me okay now. Yeah, it looks super fine. Maybe. So we have actually 5 wonderful speakers tonight, and we will do things in 2 parts. First, we will hear from 4 of them with relatively short presentations, and then we will all sit here for a panel discussion when we can exchange on the various topics discussed, and then we can also open the floor and take your questions. And so it's my great pleasure to first welcome Dr. Professor Jan Eckert, who is the Deputy Director of the Swiss Center for Design and Health. He will explain to us a bit what the center does and also explores various issues in design and longevity. Jan, thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jonas. Thank you very much, everyone. It's an extreme honor to being here. Thank you for hosting me, and also hello to all the people joining us online. So I hope I can switch. Okay, I don't have the moderation view here on the screen, but I can see myself very well. So today I would like to share some first thoughts about a subject that is unfolding at our center, the Swiss Center for Design and Health, in the context of longevity and urbanization. So urbanism of care is a bit of the topic of the first thoughts that I would like to share with you. And it's really meant as an introduction into our vibrant panel discussion afterwards. My presentation will be held in 2 parts. The first part is a bit of a framework that I would like to share with you to understand a bit of the systemic view onto longevity and urbanization. And I will go a bit quicker through that first part in order to have time enough to share some case studies that I've gathered to illustrate some of the topics that we will discuss today. So as I said, there's 2 trends, and I think they are international, urbanization and longevity, leading to a growing urban population and the need of care, and also care that will be maybe delivered in different ways that we are used to today. And these different ways of delivering care will definitely also shape the places and the people that receive care or give care. So I think you will see many or hear many of these numbers tonight. Switzerland's population is growing elderly, so the biggest part, the chunk in the middle, is already between 20 and 65 years old and is a trend that is rising. So these people will move to the upper third of that diagram, of course, and we have more than 85% of people living in urban areas. Now, saying that in Tokyo is, of course, a bit awkward in terms of, if you compare the whole population of Switzerland to Tokyo, urban Tokyo, so this is our whole country would fit into your urban area here. And we don't have these mega cities, but of course we have urban areas that stretch along the country. This is something that also one of our speakers, and I hope I pronounce your name right, Yasuko Akutsu, will talk about later. So there is this global age watch index that is also proving the numbers that the trend towards 2050 is definitely that a third or even more of our global population will be over 60 years old. So the challenge that I would like to indicate at the beginning of this talk and this discussion is that the lack of care in different fields can definitely result in systems challenges. And that means these are challenges that are interconnected. It's not just one problem that we need to address or solve, it's connected to a whole network of other problems too. So when we started discussing today's panels, we tried to look into the planetary dimension, humans, technology, and the built environment. And you already see some of the challenges emerging. We are crossing planetary boundaries. We have an emerging digital divide. We have smart cities that could lead to privatization and privacy issues when owned by larger tech companies. And we have a growing anthropogenic mass. So back in 2023, who's familiar with the planetary boundaries might have heard of these reports. 9 planetary boundaries that have been already crossed. So these boundaries are, for instance, the base for a healthy life in general on Earth. So clean air, clean water, and so forth. So 9 out of 15 are being crossed already. The digital divide, that's a bit of a thing that is usually discussed between, I would say, the poorest of the countries and the industrialized countries. But I found an interesting example that applies to Switzerland, which definitely belongs to the wealthier countries on Earth. So the broadband access to very fast internet, which might be needed, for instance, for telemedical services in the future, is well distributed. You could say at first glance. The gray areas you see on that map are mostly mountains. But if you zoom in, Biel, and that's the place where I live, and our center is just located in Nidau, a place very close to this, is very well connected already. But as soon as you go to the mountainous regions on top of that, so there is a bit of a mountainous regions there, the Jura, it's a different picture. So some of these people currently would not have access to certain services that we might imagine for the future. Smart cities privatization and privacy issues is a topic that, for instance, is being addressed by this platform called Posmo. They ask people to donate data because they say, we don't want to grab it from you without asking you. We don't want to buy it from you. But if you're willing to donate data that can contribute to a better service, in this case, for better mobility services in the Zurich area, then this is another approach, a much more democratic approach. And last but not least, the anthropogenic mass that is exceeding the biomass on Earth. So already back in 2020, there has been published this paper in Nature where it has been found that the global human-made mass has exceeded all living biomass on Earth. And this is, of course, massive. So going back to that little framework that I wanted to introduce, we have certain challenges, but of course they can be addressed. And who's familiar with Donella Meadows' systems thinking and the leverage points? I picked 3 leverage points that I think relate to the discussion that we will have later. So in this concept of urbanism of care, there is definitely socio-ecological leverage points that we can address. There's definitely technology as a leverage point that can be used to maybe improve certain situations in this system. And also we see, being an interior architect myself, I see also space as a very interesting leverage point. So the emerging question is a bit, how can we design ecosystems of care through these different lenses, right? And I picked the term lens because in the history of architecture, there's a very interesting example. So Claude Nicolas Ledoux is an architect who was commissioned to build the theater in Besançon. That's a French town not far away from Switzerland, from the Swiss border. And at the time, theaters and operas were usually made in a way where people would buy a ticket or would have different classes, like on the train. So definitely people with a cheaper ticket would have a poorer view onto the stage compared to people maybe having a balcony and having the full view and the full audio. So what Claude Nicolas Ledoux did here is, and for me it's a bit of the very first example of human-centered architecture in history, and it has been published in 1804 in his book. he said, and he made this drawing, I would like to look at the theater through the lens of the audience. And by the audience, he meant everyone in the room. So he built the theater of Besançon through the point of view of all the people that would sit there. So it was the first kind of human-centered theater or building, maybe even in history of architecture. So today I would like to explore some case studies with you through a socio-ecological lens, through a technological lens, and through a spatial lens. So looking through that lens at what could happen in the future in terms of ecosystems of care. I would start with the socio-ecological lens, and we had a fantastic public lecture last year delivered by Thomas Zeltner. He's currently the head of the Red Cross in Switzerland, and he stated love is at the center of care. And if you think that through, what love really needs to stay at the center of care, so it requires caring individuals that are acting or are able to act in an intact and healthy environment. So the resulting question for us, or for me as a designer, is how can we design such supportive environments? So one example, this is an example from a town in Switzerland called Lucerne, and it's a network of neighborhoods that provide services for elderly people. So again, this is made by people, for people. It's not owned by any company or by the municipality. It's really a self-organized network that provides, for instance, information about a healthy lifestyle for elderly people. It provides concrete services to these people, and most importantly, it connects these people. So some of them may be living alone at home, have an opportunity, and having a place to go to. I'm sure there is examples like these in Japan as well. Another project or example is the Oase Klein Basel. This is a project which is also followed by the Swiss Center for Design and Health. And this is multi-generational living, including children's hospice, so children that unfortunately are facing a lethal disease, and dementia care. So these two groups of people are being brought together in a new form of living together. And maybe we'll explore that later in the panel discussion. And another example that might be standing at the very end of aging, namely at the death of some people, is there is a network or growing network of sogenannte or so-called Friedwälder in Switzerland. So these are forest burials or forest cemeteries where people can be buried in an alternative way, where relatives can join them in a complete different surrounding compared to conventional cemeteries. Now let's look through the second lens, the technological lens, and I'm sure everyone here in the room has a lot of different ideas and examples coming to their minds. And the question that I would address here is how can we use technologies in an inclusive way that broadens pathways of care without exploiting or excluding anyone? So thinking about that digital divide that is definitely affecting some of the people that we are designing and caring for. So this is an example which at first glance doesn't really seem very technological. It's called Street Moves. It's a project that has been conducted by ArcDesk and Vinnova, the innovation agency in Sweden. And it was all thought about around the concept of the 1-minute city. So a neighborhood that provides all the necessary services in the radius of a 1-minute walking for people. And they thought, how can we design or redesign existing urban spaces and turn them into these 1-minute city spaces? So they designed a participatory design tool that started with conversations with people from the neighborhood, of course also including elderly people and from people from all generations. And it started with sketches, very simple. So people, even without any urbanistic or architectural background, could get involved into the discussion. But then from these sketches, a tool has been built, a digital tool, where people could pick different modules of this future urban furniture. So they could say, in my neighborhood, I would love to have a place where to have a picnic with my neighbors. Or in my neighborhood, I need some more bicycle stands, and so forth. So at first glance, it doesn't really seem like a tech project, but behind there was a lot of tech going on to enable this conversation going on with the neighborhoods and the architects and the urbanists. Another example, and this dives a bit into the topic of who owns the data, who has access to certain information, is this platform called UoC in Ticino. Ticino is the most southern part in Switzerland at the Italian border. And what they did there is they provided a platform where people can access environmental data. So this can be air quality, it can be the quality of water, it can be extreme heat events. And what you see here is, this is the zone around Bellinzona, which is the capital of Ticino. And in the left corner to my right side, there is the lake Lago Maggiore at Locarno. And this stretch of land during summer already gets really hot. And if you project this into 2033, which they've done on the platform, you will have certain areas around that lake that will get 40 degrees Celsius or more. So there's a certain part of the population who is really vulnerable to these extreme heat events. So what people can do here is they can zoom into the map and look at their workplace, look at the place where they live, and understand if or how this will change over the next years, and if they will be affected, for instance, by extreme heat events. So this is an example where really the access is given to the large population without any fees or barriers involved. Next, exactly. This is an example, for instance, at our Center for Design and Health. We have a big laboratory, the so-called Living Lab. It's a big hall, 2,500 square meters, and one part of the hall is dedicated to prototyping and testing models all around the topic of care at home. So how can we deliver certain care services in the future at people's homes? So it's a bit about telemedicine, about aging tech that we will hear about later, about robotics, but sometimes even just simply about the furniture design or the interior design of such a space. Because when I'm receiving care at my home, of course, I don't want my home to look like a hospital. So this is also a bit of a design challenge, how to design these environments. And last but not least, through the technological lens, this was an article just 2 days ago in The Guardian about a woman that was suddenly in a situation where she was undergoing a burnout and mental health challenges, and she couldn't really find help in that moment. So she found a platform on the net where you can create your own character fueled by artificial intelligence that creates a chatbot that can be, for instance, your psychotherapist. So she self-created her psychotherapist, which might be nice at first glance, but at second glance, a lot of questions raised, like, does this woman who is undergoing, or any person who is undergoing a very hard time in his or her life, have the capacity of self-creating and helping him or herself through such a tool, who is owning these tools, and so forth. So these are really interesting topics that are emerging, but raising a whole, series of questions all around trust, of also professionality and professional help. And last but not least, the spatial lens that I would like to look through at longevity and urbanization is summarized under how can space become a vector for the exchange of care between individuals, communities, and ultimately also between people and our planet. Because as you know, or as I tried to point out before, the anthropogenic mass exceeded biomass. So there's more man-made or people-made structures on the world compared to the natural environment. And this is a bit of, or there are a few examples that I would like to share with you. One is Urbanism of Care. It's a consortium that has emerged between the Swiss Center for Design and Health, Hosoya Schäfer Architects from Zurich, Demos Helsinki, who's a think tank in Finland, and Autonomy, who's another think tank in London. And we said we would like to gather and discuss all these challenges that emerge from urbanization and longevity and how it shapes the space that we will create in the future. And to give you a few examples, for instance, a question raises, when we redesign a building in the next 20 or 30 years, what sort of spaces does this building need to include? maybe there needs to be a special space for certain health services, because more and more health services might be delivered at people's homes and not at the hospital. More outpatient clinics are emerging all over Switzerland. So this could be also an example or question. Where could such an outpatient clinic be located? Maybe it's in the center of the town, or maybe it's in the neighborhood, in the 1-minute walking radius, for example. And that's another example from the town where I live and where also the Swiss Center for Design and Health is located very close to, Biel-Bienne. And there is an ongoing project around the quay that you can see here in the middle of the picture. There is a canal, and at the center of the image there is the Place Centrale, so the central square of Bienne. And as you also can see on this image, there's a lot of concrete, right? And imagine when it's getting hot in summer, and last summer we had several days nearly getting to the 40 degrees centigrade mark. The year before it got even exceeded once. So you can imagine that it's not very nice standing in that Place Centrale on that day. On the opposite hand, if we have extreme rain, and we have these sometimes in that region, all the water is flowing very quickly into the canal, and the canal gets flooded. So there's a whole series of problems there. So the municipality of Bienne launched a project diving into these aspects and trying to find a redesign together with the citizens of Bienne in order to highlight what sort of changes are needed in order to avoid these extreme heat in hot environments. Also maybe to introduce this, maybe some of you might be familiar with the sponge city concept, where water is absorbed for a certain time before then floating into the canal. And this is the ground floor plan or the master plan that emerged from that project. And another example is, this is David, my colleague, standing in our extended reality space for participatory planning. So we have a projection system that can project ground floor plans in real scale on the floor, and then we bring people in. In that case, it's a surgery team. They came in, we projected the floor plan of their future OR on the floor. We built some mock-up walls with cardboards. We built also some equipment, and then they simulate their future care processes. And we then held usually a debriefing. That's the right hand, the image on the right hand side, where the surgeon is explaining to the team of architects and planners what challenges have to be addressed when it comes to the redesign of this hospital or the future design of this hospital. Last but not least, there is a network, a global network, that is addressing all these questions and challenges around the topic of longevity and urbanization. It's called City of Longevity. It emerged from the National Innovation Agency Center for Aging in Newcastle, and the Swiss Center for Design and Health was the first Swiss partner to join the network. Now we also have the city of Lugano who joined, and this is really another platform to exchange ideas and questions all around the topics that we explore tonight. So wrapping up, we've heard about certain challenges, systemic challenges that emerge between different fields or components that are involved into that kind of systematic change of urbanization and longevity. And there is certain pathways, I would say, that we could explore later in the panel discussion when it comes to environments that need to support care, to technologies that should be inclusive, and also into space as a vector for care. And I would close my keynote, Ziggy, next, thank you. So I would state that once you start looking at the world through a lens of care, care can improve. So it's really, it's a changing look at the world. And then secondly, and here I would like to cite one of our panelists that we will have on our panel next Friday in Osaka at SwissNext. Her name is Mariko Sugita. She moved to Kyoto, and there's a nice interview on the net with her where she said, well, there is something special to Kyoto, and the world can be fermented by Kyoto bacteria. And I would like to pick this up and say, we could actually ferment the world's cities with care bacteria if looking through the lens of care at cities. So I would like to thank you for your attention, Ziggy, and arigatou gozaimasu.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, for this absolutely wonderful presentation. I like that you used the metaphor of fermentation. Actually, right here at University of Creativity, we had a workshop on algae and fermentation with another Swiss artist a few months ago, Maya Minder. It's also, I think there are some archives. Check it if you're interested. I forgot to mention that Jan has a PhD in design science from Venice University, degrees in architecture, and that he was also active in Switzerland and Sweden, which are not to be mixed up, and Germany. I think the triple lens of space, society, socio-ecology, and technology are really very interesting to look at those urbanism concepts of urbanism of care. We had a focus on the Swiss landscape, and now to give you also a bit of Japanese perspective, it's my great pleasure to introduce to you Chie Konno. She is the lead architect for the office called TECO. She's also an appointed professor at Kyoto Institute of Technology. She was in 2023 the recipient of the AIG Prize, and she focuses her practice on social welfare, housing, and furniture with basically a broad focus on care architecture. So please join me in welcoming Kono-san. Thank you. Chie.
Hi. Okay, good. Good evening. My name is Chie Konno. Today I will talk about the care topic in my viewpoint of architecture and living environment. And as Jonas explained already, I'm running my architecture office, TECO. And at the same time, I'm doing the teaching at Kyoto Institute of Technology and having my own laboratory to research and designing architecture. And I have been researching roofed semi-open space like this photo for about 20 years. And this town is Bhaktapur in Nepal, is one of my favorite cities. And they have many kind of this structure with roofed space in the city. And here people are reading the newspaper and just gathering and chatting. And also at the middle, you can see the old man and boy relaxing very much together. Then when I saw this kind of landscape, I thought that in Japan, we are always trying to make coexistence or multi-generational relationship through their system, building up the system. But I believe that this kind of space or landscape create very naturally care coexisting system or atmosphere or living. So I always try to bring this kind of space to the architecture. And also in these 10 years in my office, we've done more than 15 projects, which is related to care and welfare. So today I will show you the one project, which is called Kasugadai Center. It's completed in 2022. So the site is Aikawamachi in Kanagawa. And the work was for Social Welfare Association that provides care services in this community. And when I first visited this site, there was a very lively scene with children gathering. Initially, it was 2015. Then initially, the plan was to renovate one shop, the shuttered shop, in the row house to create a visiting care center, the office. Then we went to many people's place and were talking to various people there. The owner of Kasugadai Center supermarket, which is on the right side with waving shaped roof, she started to talking about closing her shop. Then because the larger supermarket have arrived very close to this supermarket and making it difficult for her to continue her business. Then it was very obvious to keep this place to shop for the local people. But after 4 months we spoke to, they closed the supermarket. Then when it's closed, the glass was blinded with the plywood and vending machine were removed and security camera over there was installed. Then soon we faced to the decline of these suburbs. So once there, we decided to discuss with the community people what the town really needs. And the workshop started with 15 to 20 people. And then numbers of people, the participants, quickly increased to 40 to 50 people. And sometimes we did the festival and candle night, these kind of things. And in this context, we decided that based on the care, and because of the client was care association, so based on this care service in this place in the town center, we want to create the original landscape for these children. So during first 3 years, we made the many kind of plans, then bring them to the owner of the land and the governments to inform them the importance of this project, the care project. And during that time, we proposed very many times, and we changed the plan so many times, like about 2 years. Yes. Then finally, after 4 years from my first visit, we started the architecture plan and decided up to make this 7 function for various people. One is dementia people's house and day service, the second one. And third one is daycare for disabled children. And fourth one and fifth one is a place for working for disabled people. And also study space for the community children, and commons room is shared by everyone. So I will show you the movie. Yes. Sorry. So these children doesn't know here is the care facilities, but I'm sure that I believe that they will build the new generation care environment. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chie-san, for the presentation. I think we will be able to discuss a bit more mixed urbanism during the panel. Thank you. It was really fascinating. So we just heard from the practitioner point of view, and now we thought we would also give you one input from the corporate side, which is extremely instrumental in really developing better urbanisms of care. And for that, it's my pleasure to welcome Makia Nambu, Managing Executive Officer at Pasona Group, which you might know as one of the leading HR company in Japan, but they are much more than that, including developments also on an island called Awajishima, and I'm sure Makia will also touch on that. Nambu-san is also an associate professor at Osaka University, so Nambu-san, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Makia Nambu, and Purva-san introduced me well, so I'm not. My first page is about my introduction, but I think I was already introduced. So Pasona Group, just briefly though, is a company founded in 1976 with the mission to harness the potential of the individual, and we offer services like expert services, HR solutions, BPO solutions, regional solutions, global solutions, and life solutions, and we have about 24,000 employees right now. So creating an environment of work, a great place to work is very important for our employees and for our company in general. So going on, okay. So the topic of today's discussion, urbanization and design. So even though I'm not a designer myself, Pasona Group, we place great emphasis on design and greenery inside our offices. And these are some of the offices. The left-hand side is the urban office that we have, and the right-hand side is the regional office that we have in Awaji Island, which I will discuss a little bit later. So on the left-hand side, in our Tokyo main office that we used to have, these are some of these are our past offices as well. In the Tokyo main office, right in the heart nearby Tokyo station, we had a hydroponic farm. And also, we realized that having greenery for our employees at the workplace is very important. So we keep greenery so that there's a good place to work. A lot of people spend a lot of time at their workplace, and this is before the pandemic. So we try to have a lot of greenery, a lot of roses. And one of the things that we did, not just with the interior of the office, is also on the exterior, on the left bottom, you can see, is we covered the exterior wall of our office with roses. And so they're not blooming in this season yet, but in the blooming season, there'll be roses in our office. And also in the previous office that we had after our indoor plantation, we had a farm in the office. So why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? So in the middle of Tokyo, it's difficult to see how plants are grown. It's far from agriculture. So by this, young people and also people in Tokyo can get an experience of agriculture in the middle of Tokyo and also be interested in agriculture. That's one of the reasons that we did this. And another reason is that having greenery alleviates, we did a survey with our employees as well, but it alleviates the mind and soul. So we did this. And the animal farm that we did, we had alpacas, we had flamingos, we had cows, we had goats, you name it. So we even had owls. We even had owls. So this is a very, very, I think, interesting way of trying to incorporate sort of, I wouldn't call this design, but ideas into the workplace. And we also have an office in Osaka. In fact, we have about 68 offices in Japan, but another office is in Osaka. In the very bottom of the staircase, there's a grand piano. So we try to have music. So every now and then, we try to have concerts in our office, and that also not just greenery, but that also creates alleviates the mind for our employees as well. And on the right-hand side is our regional Japan office. The one on the top won the Wood Design Award in 2022, but this is our Zazen Dojo. And on the bottom right-hand side, we converted a kamaboko factory, fish cake factory, into an office. So from the window, you can actually see. Can you hear me? You can see the sea actually. So not in the urban side, it's difficult to look at the sea while working. But on in the rural areas of where we did Awaji Island, you can actually work with the sea in the background, with the ocean in the background. So this was a very unique office. And going a little bit further about Awaji Island. Awaji Island is located right around here in Western Japan. It's about a 30-minute car ride from Kobe, maybe an hour from Osaka, and nearby 4 airports: Kobe Airport, Osaka International Airport, Tokushima Airport, and also Kansai Airport. But this is a very Awaji Island is nearby also Yumeshima and Kansai Airport, and it's nearby the expo, which is going to be taking place next year. And this is where we are trying to incorporate our designs and what we've learned here. And if I explain this is going to go over the 5-minute limit that I have, so I'm going to go very quickly. But we think that the body, the bonds, and the mind, it's not just the body that has to be healthy, it's also the mind and the bonds with people that creates a sense of healthiness and wellness. So in Awaji Island, we are creating an island of wellness. And I can explain each and every single one, but for example, we have a Hello Kitty restaurant. We have a Zazen dojo for the mind. We have a couple animation characters as well. And we are thinking of we're thinking about creating a music island and many things. But if I explain this too much, I will probably not be on time, so I'll go on to the next slide. And about longevity, going to the topic of longevity, in Persona Group, we did a survey of the registered people who wanted to work after retirement. And actually 18.5%, this is in January of 2019, so this is before the pandemic, but in 18.5% wanted to work until they are healthy, until they keep, as long as they're healthy, they want to keep on working. So we noticed that people who want to work, we wanted to create jobs for them. If they want to work, I guess work is a place where you spend a lot of time and also a place to bond with society. So if they want to work, we will try to find jobs. And so one of the things that we did was advisory services that we have. So people who have retired from their first job, they have a lot of experience to advise for entrepreneurs, advise for other companies. So we have an advisory service. We do something called the Elder Shine program. So elder people shining. So entering our company. And also we have something called Persona Masters, which is temporary staffing. So people who have retired from their first work or second work, we will be able to find work as temporary staffs at the next job. And this is not that they have to work, but they want to work to keep, to share knowledge that they've accumulated over their years. So I think to create a city of longevity, it's also important. The design and the greenery and Awaji is also important, but also we try to offer services that would create employment for a very long, ongoing time, as long as the person wants to be employed. And this is something that we try to do. So that was it. Thank you very much for my presentation and time.
Thank you so much. You can give. Thank you so much, Makia. It's truly fascinating. I've been how you create this environment for healthier work and career building, but also how you think about much longer careers. And I think we will touch on this topic also later during the panel. And specifically now turning to healthcare, a little bit more healthcare design. It's my pleasure to welcome our fourth speaker, Yasuko Akutsu. She's a professor at Chiba University and Tokyo Dental and Medical University. And in 2007, she initiated Aging Japan with a focus on aging and healthcare design. So, Akita Sensei, Yasuko, please, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you very much. Please allow me to read my memo. So I thank you for your excellent opportunity to give this presentation. I'm Yaskaks. Last October, I gave the presentation at the TEDx on aging tech. I would be happy if you could watch it at your convenience. The presentation is available on YouTube, complete with English subtitles. In it, I emphasize the importance of the involving old adults in developing a process as an essential strategy of the Japanese super aging society. I defined EduTech as a technology designed to help old adults live independently. Discussion of the around the the discussion around EduTech is quite exciting all over the world. However, in Japan, EduTech often gets narrowly interpreted as a care tech. In addition, the term age tech frequently considers only caregivers. After looking at the positive impact on elderly users in Japan. Last year, under the research grant from the Ministry of the Health, Labor and Welfare, I conducted a comparative study on inclusion technology. The study highlighted a need for evaluation concerning old adults' perspective in Japan. A developer often need to pay more attention to how this technology can change the lives of old adults. For example, in Denmark, monitoring devices are seen as a tool to encourage active engagement among old adults. In contrast, in Japan, they are mostly viewed as a tool for caregivers to prevent falls. There's a tendency to create products for old adults based on misconception. Once they failed in sales, they say that old adults are not familiar with technology. And during promotion, sometimes old adults are taught technology as if they were children, assuming they cannot use it. These are stigmas. I believe people avoid buying a product leading for the elderly because buying them feels like admitting they are getting aged. Unfortunately, the regular home has been discontinued because the reason why this smartphone is for just the elderly. So, as the world ages, products for senior adults are turning into the good common goods for everyone. We are running out of the caregivers, so instead of dependent on others for help, we must use technology to live independently. Making a product accessibility for old adults should be the basic idea, making things everyone can use. And notably, the saving of the old adults over 65 account for 60% of Japanese total saving. These products should not be covered by insurance, but for everyone to buy out of pocket. A time will come when old adults lead the market. Involving old adults in the process is essential when we develop inclusive product development. I mentioned in my TEDx talk that there are platforms like Leap in Toronto, Canada, and Senior Planets in New York. Where old adults are the focus and actively involved in technology development and promotion. So we need a platform like work with old. We need platforms that let us work with old adults to make products that like, since older people often face challenges with their physical and cognitive abilities. Creating project needs help from experts, brain scientists, and occupational therapists to meet their needs. And I told you about needs. Leap is doing like that. I want to create a platform like Leap in Japan. So I hope personal support Leap. I'm very, today I asked him. And so I look forward to discussing these topics further in the updating panel discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jesko. Okay, now we will move into the discussion part of our evening. And while we sit down, I just seize the opportunity to show you a short video about the Vitality.Swiss program that the embassy is running, and that is tonight presenting the workshop, the event that we are all part of. So please have a look, and after that we will gladly go into the discussion, and then quickly also go into the Q&A so that you don't feel like that it gets maybe a bit long. So don't worry, we will do it interactive. But first. So actually, we are now joined by a fifth speaker, Minu Afzali, who is the head of research at the Swiss Center for Health and Design. Welcome. Minu holds a PhD in social anthropology from the University of Bern, and she was also a professor of social design at the Bern Academy of the Arts before being the head of research at the center. I think time is passing quite quickly, so I think we should immediately move into Q&A maybe and see if the audience have questions, and then we can drive the discussion together. I think that's more interesting. And if you do not have questions, I have many, so do not worry. But first, is there anyone who would like to ask a question about the presentations from the audience? Okay. Yes. Thank you, Sarah. 日本語でも大丈夫です。どちらでも大丈夫です。
ルクールの、杉崎と申します。今日は貴重なプレゼンありがとうございました。ちょっとご質問という形で、皆さんの中でもすごい共通点の中で、幸せというか幸福っていう部分で、スイスと日本の、親和性というと、スイスは永世中立国で、日本は戦争をしないというところで、心のメンタリティーはすごい、他の国に比べれば安定しているのかなと思ってるんですけども、一方世界を見るとウクライナだったりとかイスラエルだったりとか、混沌しているところがある。で一方、ちょうど来年万博を迎えるにあたって、万博のもともとテーマが食と健康、命輝く未来社会という形で言われてますけども、今日のスイスからのお二方の方で、この健康の部分っていう部分と、いわゆる心のメンタリティというか、そういう部分を、これからの時代、より重要なものっていうのはどういうふうなフューチャーしているのかっていうのがちょっと教えていただければと思います。
I'm going to try to summarize the question. Okay.
May I?
Yeah, maybe in a summarized way. Yeah, those.
Okay. My name is Tsuji Saki, and thank you very much for the valuable presentations by all the panelists. I think the common thread of all the presentations was about happiness. And I think there's a kind of common relationship or affinity between the two countries, Switzerland and Japan, in a way that, politically speaking, the Switzerland is a neutral country, and while Japan renounces resort into war fighting. I think because of those elements, Japan and Switzerland are known for the stable mental conditions among the populations, whereas they contrast with the situations that we face in the world. For example, Israel and the Ukraine. The world situation seems to be rather chaotic today. Next year, we are going to have an expo, and the theme of this expo is going to focus on food and the future and the life that goes into the future. So I would like to ask a question of the two representatives from Switzerland. The thing is the mental health and the physical health are supposed to be the two things, and that should be considered in tandem. And from that viewpoint, what do you think are the most important things to achieve this kind of goal?
Relatively broad question, but
I'm not sure if we can answer these questions. But maybe to say also in Switzerland we face huge challenges in terms of mental health. We saw it especially after COVID-19. So we have, for instance, a lot of young people, young adults suffering from mental health problems because during COVID, obviously, they were isolated, they couldn't meet friends, although Switzerland was not that strict like other countries where you couldn't go out anymore. But still, you can see there are a lot of children and young adults who have mental health problems. As a designer, I think it's important to really look at the problems from the user's perspectives. And as Jonas said before, I think also to bring in different disciplines, because design looks at specific things from a specific perspective, but somebody, a medical doctor or a psychiatrist or a nurse would look at from another perspective. So I think it's very important to bring in together different disciplines that can contribute to finding support solutions that provide the necessary environment to support people who are in need.
Yes, maybe. Thank you for your question, first of all. It reminded me a bit of a conversation I had a couple of months ago, and we were also diving into the question, how can we contribute to a higher level of security and happiness globally? And with us in the room, there was a person who suffered from both cancer and stroke. That person is so to speak, healthy now or able to live her life. And that person jumped into the discussion and said, it's all nice what you're saying, dreaming of a happy and a secure future. But you know, dreaming is something that, for me personally, I was only able to dream while I was healthy. And so I think you need both. You need people that are healthy enough to dream of that better world that we're longing for, and also of healthy people or dreaming people that are taking care of the maybe sick or ill or mentally ill to become healthy and dreamers again. So maybe that's a bit of an answer on a different level, globally speaking.
Thank you. I think that was a good opening into our discussion moment. I think I would like to go back to one important theme, which is inclusion. I think we had all mentioned that, how to include various stakeholders, including elderly, into the design process, also in how we develop technologies, care technologies. And here I would like to ask also a cultural question. From your point of view, do you see differences between the Japanese approach or the European approach or the Swiss approach, if you can think of any? Are we similar in our expectations, or do we have different maybe values or different expectations in terms of how we are going to use technology for and in the process of designing product, how we think of inclusion. Is there anyone who would like to start? Maybe Yasko?
Yes.
I know it's kind of your topic.
Yes. So it's very fun. I visited many countries. So as in country is used to someone used to the custom is someone cares or that does. So mostly it's well, traditionally we think someone help me, but in the future and near future it is difficult to support some people. So we have to change mind. But I told you about aging tech is just not even now. Aging tech is focused on care tech. But we must change our mind. And so my research, European people is focused on the how to technology implement to the field and how to change the or the adults, how to change and how to help to all the adults. But in Japan, I'm sorry. So in Japan, is most of technology is how to cover care workers. It's very different, but we should change because we cannot continue this situation in the future. So we have to take care of myself, including me. So I'm over the 65, so I should decide it.
Maybe, and I think you, Kono-san, you did quite a lot in terms of including your stakeholders in your design. Can you say a bit more about this process? You said you spent 2 years going back and forth with them, trying to answer and understand what their needs were.
Yeah. Yes, in our office, we often take a part of research part, not only the designing part. So we first started with the city research, town research, and communicate with the people living there. And then we start to think about what the needs for example, 10 years later or 20 years. Then they suddenly notice that we have to think about we, not someone will give us some services, but we have to decide, or it's our problem. Then everyone is started to think about collaborating work, and if someone raised the problem, then all the others think about how to join this problem or how to solve this problem together. Then to make this kind of community work or community or the relationship, it was very important before designing. Then after the completion of architecture, people already know what to do or what we want to do for the future or in this place. So I think to cultivate thinking of this, to make how can I say, autonomous community for themselves, it's really important to keep their society for the future, I think. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think
Minu?
it's very important what you think, what you're saying, because I think it's also about empowering people to be part of the design or development process. So what you mentioned before is also how you look at the people you design for. You rather design with them. So they're playing an active role, not a passive one. And I think this is also the experience that we do when we include nurses, doctors in simulations, and we build their future spaces, the hospital where they have to work. They test the work and treatment processes. So after that, we do debriefings, and there's a lot of appreciation from the user side that they get a sense that people and the architects listen to what they have to say. And I think by including people, empowering them, giving them a voice, and giving them also a decision how they want their future environment to be designed, you also pay respect, and they also feel acknowledged. And I think then I think there's a pretty good chance that they will also accept the solutions more, like your architecture where they were involved. They know already the decisions which were behind it, and then they maybe also appreciate the solution more than if somebody does it from top down.
Do you want to add something?
Well, I can only confirm. I mean, I think one of the biggest challenge or weaknesses of us designers is that, and unfortunately that's a bit of a past now, but when we think of the glorious 80s and 90s with the star designers, many of these people, they were thinking they have the ready solution, and there's only that one. And this sometimes also happens with tech, I think. Sometimes people come up with a technology and they have this imagination that, oh yes, this will solve this and this and this problem. And in the best case, it's someone who has talked to people before. In the worst case, it's like some of these projects that have been built in the past where maybe an architectural team has never talked to a nurse or a doctor, and they came up with a hospital design. So I think this is a fundamental change in perspective of thinking of being able delivering a solution that maybe doesn't even fit an existing problem, or like, you know, as you described it, in a bottom-up and grassroots approach, coming from the people's and the real needs and questions these people carry.
Thank you. Yes. I would like to continue maybe a little bit also on this idea of adapting to a changing society, going back into working very late into careers and into life. So you said that Matthias, you said 18% of your respondents are ready to work beyond retirement age, right?
Yes, I don't want to go into numbers too much because they probably differ before the coronavirus and after the coronavirus. So, but work is as a company, our job is to create the best matching work for the person, and a lot of people work. At work, before coronavirus, they stayed at their offices mostly. Now, it depends on the company, but it was very important to create work. And whether it's from the age of from a young age to seniors, and I'm sure in the next 20 years, 30 years, I think Professor mentioned the lifespan of people will be increasing and increasing, which means that people will be healthy at 80, 90, 100, 110. So they'll be having multiple careers, and to stop at one career is not. If they want to continue along the path, maybe they want to become a barber, and then maybe at the age of 60 they want to become a restaurant owner. Maybe, and our job is to try to be with that person and to sort of have their dreams come true, and that would definitely, I think, create longevity society and city in that way.
Thank you so much. I don't know, other panelists, is working very long into life also related to healthy aging from your perspective?
I think this is something that we discussed before. There's maybe also a little bit a difference in the I missed the word, the generational gap. So what we see I think in the European countries or in Switzerland, especially now with the Generation Z, that there is another appreciation for work or for free time. So there are a lot of young people who say, I want to work less, I want to have a part-time job, enough that I can pay the rent, but for me it's important to spend time with my friends, going on holiday, whatever, and this is mainly younger people. And I think but on the other hand, somehow we have to think how we want to finance it, because we have a huge aging population. And in Switzerland, and I guess in Japan, it's similar, that we have the pyramid, and it's going like this shape. Yeah. So we have a small number of young people that have to finance elderly people and the healthcare services and the provision of care. So this is something that we have to deal with. I guess we won't. We will have to work longer, and also people who want to work longer. Why shouldn't they? I mean, they have so much knowledge, and it would be a waste of knowledge and skills, I guess.
Thank you. What I find really fascinating is that all that you've said now shows that societies are changing quite fast. And so today's topic was focusing on urbanism. And so now I would like to ask you, and then also we can hear from our audience, what kind of cities will emerge from those changing societies? How will cities change as the population pyramid changes, as work styles are changing, and as maybe, I don't know, healthcare as well is changing? Of course, we cannot answer this question entirely, but maybe a few ideas or a few inputs on that question of a changing society and new kinds of urban care environments. Yasuko, you want to start?
Yes. So in Japan, to be honest, we are very challenges rural side. Many city is vanished in the future. It's a Genkai Shuraku. It's disappears.
Yeah.
Many village and cities disappear in the near future. It's a big issue. And so persona is trying to many things, so they move to Awajishima. But so I can, it is, I think we cannot do help to stop this situation. Yes, because the total population is decreasing
Shrinking.
rapidly. So at that time, how to support technology, how to stop to this occasion is by using technology.
So you're a technology believer.
Technology, yes.
Yeah.
So for example, so it's a baby boomer has a lot of knowledge. So if the baby boomers moved, finished quit the job, we don't have enough knowledge. So we have to archive of knowledge. So with using the robotics and present robotics and virtual reality, so support the lack of the knowledge of baby boomers' knowledge. So it's big issues. So how to stop this situation? But we should develop the technology. So I think.
So technological approach.
Yes.
Maybe more telemedicine.
Telemedicine and not only telemedicine, the working. For example, railway so supported manpower, but it's difficult to continue the railway maintenance. So it's using virtual reality and AR, VR support. This works.
Automation.
Automation,
Okay,
yes.
yeah. So a more automatized society for a shrinking population.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Makia, how do you see the future urbanisms of care?
Future urbanism of care. So one of the things that we noticed before we went to Awaji Island was that people were gathering in Tokyo or the big city. There was overpopulation in the big city, whereas the suburban areas or the rural areas, the population was decreasing. And so one of the things that we were trying to do was to try to develop the rural areas, starting with Awaji Island, but also going to many other places in the future, hopefully. But on the other hand, we also noticed that there's not many jobs in the rural areas of Japan. Even if the people wanted to go back or was born in the rural area, they go to Tokyo. But then even if they want to come back, there might not be a job that they want to do. So one of the things that we are trying to do right now is to create jobs in the rural areas of Japan, so that we call it U-turn, sometimes I-turn, Y-turn, to return to a lot of people do want to return back. And as Yasuko-san said, technology has made it possible so that we can be staying nearby the seaside, but then working as an accountant, for example, because of the technology and IT and DX that has evolved over even the past 5 years has made it evolve very, very quickly. So in the future, I think I see, hopefully, Japan in general, in the suburban and the rural areas, also evolving with the urban areas, and to I guess up the entire living standards of Japan and the elderly in general.
But with also this kind of reinvestment of regions.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Chie, this is also what you think with the future urbanisms of care will look like?
Yes.
日本語でも大丈夫ですよ。In whichever language you want, we have
Thank you.
interpretation.
So until 10 years ago, the many dementia people or the disabled people tend to be brought to their countryside because they have a difficulty, but households like husband or the wife cannot care for them in the house. Then they put to this kind of care facility in the mountain or the very countryside. Even if in the center of suburbia, they kind of refuse to put this kind of institution. But Well, I'm collaborating with a very how can I say interesting leader in care association now, and they're thinking to bring them to the city in the center of the city. It was a very suburban area, but yeah, even if it's a city center, they try to bring them to live together in the young generation, and to understand the way of living of this dementia or elderly people. It's very important to keep the future society, I think. Then even if the dementia people cannot work full time, but for example, 3 hours they can work in the city, then it's makes the society change. So I think this kind of urban situation or the central cities situation with the care facility, it could change the thinking of people living. Yes.
So mixed urbanism, like you developed with different communities,
Yes.
stakeholders living together. I think you also mentioned coexistence, or someone did coexisting. I think it's a very interesting Japanese concept, kyosei shakai.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
a Japanese concept.
In Japan, it's quite strong, kyosei shakai.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
On the evolving urbanisms of care, I want to turn myself to our friends from the Swiss Center for Design and Health.
Maybe I would like to look at it through the lens of the city. So, and I'm thinking a bit of the Japanese author Murakami, who in some of his books describes the city as a living organism.
Haruki.
Haruki. Also, yeah. Also in his last novel, The City with the Uncertain Wall. So it's something living, and we all know that we won't be able to tear down the cities that are there already. And they have evolved over centuries, over thousands of years. So changing the concept of urbanism of care will not happen overnight. It will not be easy. So it's an ongoing adaptation to new emerging needs and challenges. Sometimes there are maybe turbo-loaded by crises, such as the COVID pandemic that we experienced. So then suddenly people realize there is an instant need for change, but most of the time it's an incremental change that is going on. And I think that's why I wanted to emphasize this kind of looking at the things through the lens of care will help us to identify, where there are opportunities to initiate this incremental change today. Because again, we won't be able to take huge leaps there.
Being pragmatic, we will not reinvent the city in a snap. That's absolutely true. And you mentioned research, and so I turn myself to your head of research, Minu. Any?
Yeah, I want to also continue what you said. We will have the topic of dementia. This is, I think, really like a challenge for the cities also.
Yes.
Because right now in Switzerland, and I guess also in Japan, the cities are not prepared for a huge population having or suffering from cognitive impairment. And we know from this population groups during COVID, there have been done studies where they, for instance, they used in the nursing homes, they used FaceTime tablets to support like the connection with the relatives, but somebody who is cognitive impaired, they don't accept FaceTime. So the technologies are limited. You cannot use them because people wouldn't understand it. So you have to go to the very basic needs. You have to, like the 5 senses that we have, meet people, touch people, love. So I think we need to, coming back to inclusivity, like, how can our cities become barrier-free? How can we create spaces where a caregiver, like I can go with a relative who has dementia, and I can sit there in a cafe, I don't have to think about what other people think. So to create an environment where it's also accepted that there are other participants of a society who suffer from, I don't know, all kind of diseases or impairment. So I think we have a lot to do in this area, and there maybe technology cannot always help.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Stig, yeah, I think absolutely. What is so interesting is what you just say. First of all, of course, the human touch seems to be still very, very important. But in a labor shortage situation, how do we organize this is, I think, a key question. And
I think it's about using technology where it really makes sense.
Right.
Like taking the burden from the caregivers, like work that is really also physically very heavy, or repeated action that is puts a lot of effort on the caregiver, but so really look at it where it makes sense, and in other areas we might find other solutions.
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. I think these are excellent words maybe to close our panel, but turn ourselves to our audience for a few more questions, maybe one or two, because then we have some snacks and a bit of wine to refurbish our mood. But before that, if anyone, yes.
Thank you very much. I'm Daniel Momari. I come from Switzerland, but I've been living in Japan for 26 years. And my question is, I feel that when people live longer, the elderly people, they should be treated more equally. What I see is that in the Japanese society, everybody gets chucked out of the company at 60. If they're lucky, I think they now have the right to work until 65, but they do not have the right to work in the same condition.
Yeah.
So they get 30% pay cut, 40% cut, that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. On the other hand, the people who actually make the rules, the politicians, the company owners, they stick to their seats into their 90s. Is that fair? I mean, this is a real question, because if the elderly people, they grow and grow, so the younger generation will expect that the elderly people will contribute more, because they can't live on old age pension for 40 years, right? That's simply not possible.
No,
the
not
young
possible.
people will not tolerate that. So I think, what do you think, what can be done that the elderly people can contribute fairly to society?
Yeah, you're talking about equity, yeah? More, a society that is more equal is probably more, less stigma on the elderly generation. And is it the case, and how can we make that happen? Yeah, okay, thank you. Maybe we start, I see now, raising his eyebrows. We're probably not going to solve this question tonight, but maybe a few thoughts from anyone?
I can just add on that this topic or this question dives into a hugely complex topic or thematic. You know, I'm just thinking about also what our observation that in Switzerland more and more people have the wish or need to work part-time. So this also leads to a situation where even less productivity is expected to cover a demand of a generation that wants to retire. So it's really interesting to hear that here there is actually a significant part of the elderly society that would like to carry on working. So this is really, again, it's really different generations and different perspectives that are somehow clashing at some points. And then you said it's the people who kind of decide, but it's also different generations that are involved into what was, for instance, the latest voting in Switzerland about to, change some of the plans. And then you see that some of the results are raising questions again. Is it the right system to carry on with? How do we deal and make what you could call like a generational pact, between you and your future generation that is also meant to support you? So
what Jan is
no clear
mentioning
answer
is
here.
on last weekend, the Swiss population voted to add 1 month of pension payment for retired people. So when you retire, instead of getting 12 months of pension, you get 13 months. However, the executive part of the Swiss government that is my employer, so I speak a little bit in their name, argued that we don't know how we are going to pay that. And so this question is still open, and now we will have to discuss at the parliament how to solve this question. So this generational pact, yeah, very, very deep question. Minu, you want to add something on this huge question?
I think it's such a complex question. No, I don't add.
One last, Stefan, maybe one. Here's the director of the Swiss Center for Design and Health, Stefan Sulzer.
I'm going to make it a lot easier for you with my question. We hear so many times in concepts that we have technology to support workers like surgeons, support nurses. What we found a lot is that in the effect, let's say a surgeon saves 1 hour a day because he has a technical support. And then in the concept it says, so he has more time for the patient. He has more time to really look after his employees, maybe the nurses that work for him.
Yeah.
In reality is the administrators see, there's 1 hour more work. Now he's going to do 11 surgeries, not 10 per day. How do we, I know it's a very difficult question, but how do we create guidelines that make sure that technology that is implemented is actually there for what they say it's implemented, to make the jobs of these people better, and not to use it as a means to create more profit?
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's under the banner to help the people, but actually it's there to be a tool for making more profit. And so not for the benefit of the people that it actually is supposed to support. I know a very easy question to finish it. I thought I'm really going to lowball you with this one. But maybe our friends from Japan, I don't know, they have some how do we secure this?
Yes, Ko, any thought? I think the question is that in Switzerland we use market to constrain costs, or so we think it does. We use market forces to organize the pricing in the healthcare system.
Yes, similar in Japan.
Somehow, yeah. But I think you mentioned that when we implement new technologies, these technologies should be able to reduce some tasks for the caregivers, and they should be using this time to actually care. But sometimes, actually, these changes just increase value producing for the private companies, and then this time is not used to care. Right, Stefan? That's what you mean, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you see a mechanism to, let's say, master or control that a bit better?
Maybe care and medical is different. Yes. So we are faced on the shortage of caregivers. So we need to something. We should some technology implemented care field. But you said it's difficult to implement the technology in the care field because caregivers not familiar with the technology, and so very old Japanese careware is very old-fashioned. It's not. I'm surprised. So it's very old. So it is difficult to enter. And as a medical thing, medical is Japanese medical cost is limited. All the treatment is have the same point. So it is difficult to implement technology because the technology cost is very high, higher than using dogs using by themselves. So it is difficult. The reason why it's difficult to implement technology, especially surgery. And Japanese medical cost is very increasing. So most of the most of the
the red figures, loss.
So it is difficult to invest technology in medical field.
Thank you.
For surgery.
Jan, yes.
I think it's a hugely interesting question that leads me to a provocative perspective. I mean, currently we used a lot of technologies to, as Stefan said, to kind of try to replace human tasks or activities And then we fill in the gap that emerges on the human side with other tasks. So my question is, what if the technologies that are being currently developed, and I'm talking about many of them being based on artificial intelligence, what if they get even better, you know, as the human being in many of the tasks that need to be handled? And what if the number that these technologies can replace gets so high that we don't even keep up with, you know, pushing in new tasks? So maybe we are just at the bit, you know, we are approaching a sort of tipping point. We kind of, currently we have this kind of technology jumps in, but maybe the page will turn around at some point. I don't know.
Free some resource to develop a care society. Is that a bit what you...
Well, hopefully it does.
That's a nice... Someone mentioned dream before. I think this is a nice vision for an AI-powered society where there's more care and more love. In French, we use the word health to say santé, which is also the word to say cheers. And so I suggest that we will actually be moving to the left to share a glass of wine if you have a few more minutes to spend with us. But before that, I would like to give a very warm round of applause for our great speakers tonight. Thank you so much. Ninu, Jan, Chie, Makia, and Yasko for the great inputs. And thank you all for joining us. And now, yes, please follow my excellent colleague Sarah. Where's Sarah? Yeah. Also, a big round of applause for Sarah, who was the absolute instrumental colleague for tonight's event. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Konnichiwa.